Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Historia Politica Publica. This is an episode about a book that I read last year, and I think it's very interesting to understand the political thinking of the 20th century, especially from the insight of a deeply conservative person. I am talking about a book called The Man Who Was Thursday, a Nightmare, written by Chesterton. Chesterton was a British author who was born in 1874 in London in the area of Kensington, which two of his most works take place in that part, such as The Man Who Was Thursday and The Napoleon of Notting Hill, that I will speak in another episode about this book, also very interesting. And he died in 1936. He had a really prolific life. He wrote over 80 books, and it is being said that his book, The Man Who Was Thursday, what I am going to talk right now, influenced a lot of people like Gandhi, Marshall McLuhan, Michael Collins, which was the revolutionary of Ireland and participated in the fight against the British Empire in the 1920s to achieve the Irish Home Rule that later on had influence on the Indian Home Rule, the writings of Gandhi, and so on. They coincided in time. Also, Terry Pratchett and Jorge Luis Borges. So, what is this book so interesting? Well, the narrative of The Man Who Was Thursday is thrilling because it is a kind of novel of mystery where you are the main character is a policeman who is trying to overthrow an anarchist plot that is happening in London. It is very important to understand Chesterton because, again, he was a very conservative person. He refused every kind of modern political thought, and in his novel, through the voice of Gabriel Syme, which is the main character, the detective, he expressed that the most dangerous current of our contemporary society is the modern ideas. He likes to criticize not just anarchism, but also socialism, communism, and the liberal ideas. So Chesterton, it is a conservative person with the precise meaning of this term. So we could not consider that the nowadays people who consider themselves as conservative, but that they are neoliberals, can follow the Chesterton thinking. On the other hand, Chesterton was more a kind of person who advocates for the retreat to the past, the power of religion in order to govern our lifestyle, because for him it was important to stay in community, have the familiar relations, and not try to progress so fast as capitalism has been said. So it is interesting to read what Chesterton thinks about the 1920s with the rise of fascism, the decay of capitalism, and also the rise of the Soviet Union. But the thing is, like, in his book, you can see his criticism to the anarchist ideas, and based on the Victorian era of London, Gabriel Syme, which is the main character, and it is a detective of Scotland Yard, he's recruited to kind of discover an anarchist plot. Lucian Gregory is another important character of the novel. Is an anarchist poet who lives in the suburb of Saffron Park. Saffron Park, it is an area which it is in South Kensington. It doesn't exist anymore, but at that time it was an area near where Chesterton used to live. So both of them met at a party and they debate the meaning of poetry. Gregory, the anarchist, argues that revolt is the basis of poetry, while Syme insists the essence of poetry is not revolution, but law. This conversation that appears in the first episode is fundamental to comprehend the thinking of Chesterton and also the narrative that will be developed during the novel. Obviously, Chesterton represents Gabriel Syme. thinking that the law, it is the most important, that order in a society is fundamental to achieve a common harmony within all human beings. Certainly, Chesterton was deeply influenced by Thomas Hobbes, the writer of Leviathan, who mentioned that only through the creation of a state, this mythical figure, abstract, metaphysical, can we avoid that the human beings start to kill each other. Whereas for Lucian Gregory, the anarchist, it is the importance of human beings thinking, developing by themselves, creating, focusing their lives on arts, and kind of helping each other to establish a communist anarchist society. It will be the best for the human being. So they have this debate, and in order to kind of explain this difference of thought, they use a metaphor that I think is very interesting. And when I read the book, I found fascinating how Chesterton kind of relate these two debates with something which we know very well living in the metropolis. So they speak about the underground system in London. For instance, Lucian Gregory, the anarchist, mentioned that the poem is a revolution, so you cannot have a poem which is following a particular kind of patron, like kind of must be something spontaneously that the person have to develop. And Gabriel Syme replies, okay, what about the underground in London? The underground works perfectly because when I go in Baker Street station, I know that the next one will be a Baker. Sorry, let me start again. When he say I don't remember exactly which underground stations he refers, but he says something like, when I go into the Northern Line in Leicester Square, I know that the next station will be Charing Cross, and the previous one will be a Tottenham Court Road. If suddenly I went down into Leicester Square and I just appear in Baker Street, that would be chaotic and I would hate it. And Lucian Gregory replied him, no, that will be the best of idea, because you cannot understand what will happen next, and this is the beauty of human being. Chesterton, being a conservative anti-anarchist and against any kind of movement that seeks the progress of humanity, obviously uses this example to criticize the anarchist idea, like emphasizing that they do not care about anything. Like, okay, how are you going to be so mad to believe that it will be a good idea to not following a determined patron when you enter in the underground? Obviously, this is ridiculous. Even for people that we consider ourselves as anarchists, we love the fact that the underground is always following the same line, and you can plan your journey starting in one point and going to another. But with this debate, it starts to develop the story between Gregory and a Gabriel Syme. In that sense, he points to Gregory that he's not really serious about anarchism. And in that sense, Gregory, after the debate, when the party finishes, he goes to see Syme and he confessed him a secret, like, okay, we have an underground anarchist meeting place, so if you promise me to not reveal the secret, I will carry you there. Interestingly, when Gabriel Syme, who is a detective that is investigating the anarchist secret plots, for that reason he goes to that party to meet Lucian Gregory, he discovered the anarchist underground area, which I think is under the Thames, like near Embankment. But because he has taken the oath to not say anything to the authorities, he must remain silent. And this is one of the other interesting points of Chesterton. He was a deeply religious person. He was a Protestant initially, but after he converted himself to the Roman Catholic Church. And you have the paradox, like, okay, because Gabriel Syme at the beginning, he doesn't have a job. He's recruited by the Scotland Yard Department to investigate this. So his final aim is to discover the anarchist plot. However, when he sees with his eyes how these people are gathering in the underground area, he cannot denounce them to the authorities. Why? Because he has taken the oath. And this is very important for Chesterton. And here he expressed his deep religious conviction. So you have the paradox that a detective that has discovered the mystery that he was seeking for cannot reveal, for instance, what he has seen because he has promised to not do so. So when he enters the kind of underground, he discovers that there is an European Anarchist Council and they are taking place in London. In this council there are 7 men. Each of them, they are using the name of a day of the week as a cover. Obviously, the name of the book, The Man Who Was Thursday, makes reference to that. So you have 7 members. The leader is Sunday, and again, Monday, Tuesday, and so on. So, interestingly, when Gregory takes Gabriel Syme to that council, there is also a reunion in which there will be an election to choose who will be the next member, who will be Thursday, because Thursday, I think, the original one has just died and they need to kind of elect a new one. Now what happened here is very interesting because Gregory was telling before to Gabriel Syme that he was going to present himself and he probably will be elected because he has some sympathy with the members. So Gregory raised his hand like, I want to become member of the Anarchist Council. And when it seems that everybody is good with that, Gabriel Syme raised his hand and said, no, I want to be Thursday. And here is very interesting because Lucian Gregory mentions, okay, but come on, you cannot do that. It's not possible, and so on. And Gabriel Syme says, why I cannot do that? Forgot to tell something before. When Lucian Gregory tell him that there is an anarchist underground and he already made the promise, Gabriel Syme replied to him, okay, I will tell you something if you promise me to not say this. And Lucian Gregory say, okay, perfect. I am a detective of Scotland Yard. And Gregory say, come on, no, this cannot be possible. You are a traitor. But Gabriel replied, okay, you can not say anything. And the thing is, like, when they are in the council, obviously Gregory would like to say, listen, this guy's a detective, he's going to betray us. But because he has taken the oath, he cannot say something. So the similar situation as Syme. But interestingly, where Syme is a conservative religious person, Gregory is an anarchist. Still, Chesterton points the importance of promising something. Obviously, for the anarchists, even though they are atheists, the importance of promising is fundamental. Not just for the fear of being punished by God or something, but because if anarchism believes in mutual aid, cooperation, solidarity among people, the idea that it is important to establish in networks and the relevance of honesty within human relations. If you have made a promise, you cannot break it. So you have here a whole debate in which Gregory would like to say that he's a liar, that Gabriel Syme is a detective in disguise. He cannot say anything. And this part is very interesting. At the end, both of them had to defend their anarchist credentials in order to be elected. Whereas Gregory takes the anarcho-pacifist idea like, okay, we need to change society, we need to create networks of thought, we need to ally with people from different parts of the world in order to create cooperatives, a kind of federal system. We need to teach among ourselves, we need to be aware about our surroundings and so on. So the kind of anarchist approach developed by Ursula Le Guin in her books. Also Noam Chomsky, Kropotkin, Emma Goldman, or other thinkers. The other Gabriel, the detective of Scotland Yard, goes for a more anarcho-terrorist approach, like, okay, we need to kill society, we need to throw bombs, start from zero, destroy everything. Interestingly, the people in the council support more the approach of Gabriel, even though he's making that up, using the kind of stereotype of anarchism, relating it to terror, to bomb, to destroy, and so on. And I think here, at the end, Gabriel wins the vote against Gregory, who obviously he left the room foaming and very angry with everything that has just happened in the last minutes. It is interesting because I think living in the book is published in 1908. In the last 20 years before that, the current of anarchism was expanding across Europe with the greetings of Proudhon, Bakunin, and Kropotkin, and later on Emma Goldman. But anarchism had a negative meaning. It was used pejoratively to refer to terrorism and destruction. Why so? Apparently, in 1880s, after the kill of the Tsar, I think it was Nicholas II in the Russian Empire, anarchism started to achieve a negative fame across the world. Later on in the United States, there was the high market bombing, in which, without any proof, 4 anarchists were killed, were murdered, sentenced to death, and after executed, and that happened in 1886. So it's like from 1880s you have this current against anarchism, same as a bit earlier with the International Socialist, the first International with Marx and Bakunin. The people in the whole Europe was alert against those leftist influences and start to take measures against that, such as, for example, in the Prussian Empire, the Social Democratic Party was abolished with Bismarck, and you had this kind of current which was originated like 19th centuries and so on. So Chesterton smartly in the book uses all these stereotypes that refer to anarchism in order to demonize them. And using that through the voice of Gabriel Syme, he's able to become Thursday, the new member of the council. So whereas Lucian Gregory employs an anarchist rhetoric based on anarchist ideals of cooperation, integration, the importance of knowledge, and so on, ideas developed by Emma Goldman, Kropotkin, Bakunin, Proudhon, and many other important anarchists, it is at the end Gabriel Syme who gains the battle and becomes the new member. And without wanting to go on about the argument and the experience that they take on the book and say the kind of approach taken by Gabriel and the other anarchists, I will recommend the lecture of the book because it is quite easy to read. The narrative is very engaging, and again, Chesterton during the whole narrative sent this kind of message to attack anarchism, also capitalism, and any kind of modern thought that has developed since the Enlightenment. In fact, there are some quotes from the book that I think are interesting to read and illustrate precisely this reality that I have been just expressing. At the beginning of the book, before the narrative starts to develop, there is a poem which he dedicates to a friend, and he points, "Yeah, a sick cloud upon the soul when we were boys together. Science announced non-entity and art and mere decay. The world was all unended, but you and I were gay. Round us in antique order, their cliff beasts came." So here, what basically Chesterton is saying is that when the Enlightenment started to permeate in our societies with the art, science, and so on, the old world ended. So the old order based by the idea of religion, the ancient regime, the kind of absolutist monarchy was destroyed during the French Revolution, and even though later on started to come back again with the Restoration in Europe, these ideas had already expanded through Europe and it was not possible to maintain for the long. So those crippled beast games are for Chesterton the epitome of the modern thought. And at the end of this poem, he mentioned, "Between us, by the peace of God," again, he was a deeply religious person, Truth can now be told. Yeah, there is strength in striking root and good in growing old. We have found common things at last, and marriage and a creed. And he ends saying, and I may safely write it now that you and I will be good. The thing is, he points against this idea of traveling around, of meeting different people. He advocates for the old tradition of staying in one place, marrying young, and kind of staying with your family. Again, he was a deeply conservative person. So again, a person that it was even against capitalism. And here, chapter 2, which is called The Secret of Gabriel's Time, he mentions, I think this is through the voice of Gabriel that he makes, quote, "Then I made up as a millionaire, but I defended capital with so much intelligence that a fool could see that I was quite poor." In other words, the money has become the god in our societies, as Gandhi mentioned in 1908, precisely the same year that this book was published. I have just realized that. It's incredible. The Hind Swaraj, or Indian Home Rule by Gandhi, was published in 1908, same year as the book of Chesterton, The Man Who Was Thursday. But the thing that Gabriel is saying is that capitalism, it is my divinity, and because I base my life seeking money, anybody could be that I was so miserable, that I was at the end a poor people, even though I have luxury and so on. So here Chesterton refers clearly to the poorness that is based in our capitalist societies. In that sense, the books goes on, and I am reading here a huge amount of different sentences that all are very interesting to share. For example, here in the chapter 4, called The Tale of a Detective, mentioned that, quote, "He's certain that the scientific and artistic worlds are silently bound in a crusade against the family and the state. He has therefore formed a special corps of policemen who are also philosophers." This is incredible because it clearly relates to the Platonic idea that the philosophers must be kings, or kings must be philosophers. The idea of the philosopher king, the person which through the use of reason can become the leader of the society. And this is what Chesterton is criticized, like, okay, why the people who employ the reason kind of expanded through the Enlightenment from Plato to Kant. Kant was one of the most important philosophers of the Enlightenment, and who expanded the ideas of Plato to the modern world, or at least was one of them. But Chesterton refused this idea because, again, science and art, that the two currents that he mentioned in the poem, are bound in a crusade against the family and the state. So again, Enlightenment, the current of the lights, these new ideas developed by Kant, Rousseau, Voltaire, Diderot, and many other thinkers are trying to destroy the Christian Catholic idea of the state, the church, and the family. So the three pillars that are sustaining our system want to be destroyed by the anarchists. Interestingly, he relates anarchism to the ideas of the Enlightenment, because at the beginning, again, he mentions that the most dangerous thing about the current world, it is the modern thought. And I just reminds that Chomsky and other anarchists have always related the libertarian thought to the kind of inheritor of the Enlightenment ideas. Chomsky always mentioned people like Diderot or von Humboldt as the kind of father of the modern anarchism, with their ideas on freedom, developing knowledge and cooperation and so on. And it seems that Chesterton also had the same idea, because in his story, anarchism is the evil, is the enemy, because they represent the progress towards the future. And Chesterton is totally against that. So what happened? At the end of the novel, I won't tell what happened, because I will invite all of you to read the book. There is also a graphic novel, which is fascinating, with the kind of illustration from the London of 19th century, beginning of the 20th, with Covent Garden, Leicester Square, you have also Regent's Park and many other significant parts of the city. You have how the Council of Anarchism start to develop itself, and you see a kind of humoristic persecution across the cities of London, where Sunday, the leader of the Anarchist Council, is riding an elephant who was imprisoned in the zoo of Regent's Park, a zoo that still exists, unfortunately. And I think Chesterton here was also criticizing the idea of the zoo, because at the end it's like an elephant is fleeing away, and anarchist is riding him or her. So I believe that Chesterton here sends another message, because all his novels are always allegories of something. Like the Napoleon of Notting Hill is a criticism against another more modern current thought, which is nationalism, and I will talk about that in the next episode. But here, I think he's advocating for the idea that the animals must remain in their place of origin, same as human. If he was criticizing those human beings who do not take root in their hometown and want to explore the whole world and everything else, I believe that here, with the elephant escaping from the zoo, the prison for the animals that is London and many places of the world, how for him these elephants should come back to his or her place of origin. And I will finish here the episode with this novel that kind of presents us with many philosophical dilemmas, such as, is it modern thought fundamental in our society? Being a deeply conservative person and an author who wrote very fruitfully about his ideas in many different books, there is also The Innocence of Father Brown. It is, I think, interesting to read. I am against his ideas. His political thought is very far from my own one. Still, I think his narrative style and the way that he portrays his own political thought is fundamental, and I think it is an incredible narrative to read, very thrilling, funny to explore, and one of the books that most impressed me from last year.